Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Gotham as well as the latest episode of Arrow. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you don't want to hear what I had to say about this week's episode of Gotham, you can skip to what I say about this week's episode of Arrow. But the first thing I want to talk about is this week's episode of Gotham. So in this episode, obviously we have Jerome, Tetch, as well as Scarecrow all escaping Arkham. Obviously, there is more people who escape with them, but those are the main three, like villains that kind of escape. And it's kind of interesting the different parallels between the episode, because obviously you have like the whole situation with Gordon, and for him, like the biggest thing for him is like, he still feels like he doesn't deserve to be in this position. Like the guild is still eating away at him, and you still have Harvey, who, surprisingly enough, Harvey is sticking around and telling him, like, no matter what, like, you can't tell anyone what happened. You have to eat. You kind of have to deal with that. You have to keep that secret, or everything will kind of fall apart. Especially with these three on the loose, which I felt so bad for that couple who Tetch ended up killing, because it's like, you didn't give me a choice when it came to, Alice, so I'm not giving you a choice now. And he ended up killing that couple with that wrecking ball and dropping it on him. It's like, obviously, most likely, like, a just married couple, too, which is such a shame. It's so messed up, because it's like, he obviously, in his demented mind, he blames James for everything. But it's like, dude, your sister died because she couldn't stand you. She wanted to get away from you that badly, so if anything, it was your own fault. But, just because it's, his craziness, he's willing to see things from his perspective, so. It was crazy what he did. Like, I was like, oh, I guess he got a few people on the ledges. Like, no, he got like a crap ton of people to stand on the ledges all over the city. I was like, man, that's crazy. I was like, even I had to be like, because they brought it up. They're like, how is he doing that? I was like, yeah, how is he doing that? How is he getting that many people under his control? Is his hypnotism skills that strong? I wonder how did he do it during, ultimately, they ended up finding out he was doing it through the radio, but it's just like, I wonder how exactly did he do it? Like, I guess you can just hypnotize your voice, but I thought he needed to do more with it. But I guess, like, if you use sound plus his own voice, then, like, I think to put someone in a trance, you need to have something kind of repeating. So I guess if you kind of perform, like, the right sounds or something like that, it could work like that. Because most things, it seems like I don't know. It's been a while, so I feel like I don't remember his tactics as well as when it came to hypnotizing people. But it was kind of interesting because we saw Bullock biting the bullet in this particular case, because he ends up locking himself in one of the cars so that they can find out what radio station he's coming out from. And I also appreciate just kind of one of those badass moments of Jim just holding Tetch's hand up to the glass and then pulling the trigger and shooting him in the hand. I was like, ooh. The things didn't play out the way I thought they would, because they were like, oh, like, I thought what was going to happen is that Tetch, not knowing this, but I figured, like, the only way, like, Gordon would be able to get them, all the people, to safely, stay alive. I thought it was going to be something like, oh man, he's going to have to confess himself in front of, on a live radio recording where everyone's going to hear, where there's going to be Gotham as well as the city was going to have to. I thought it was going to be something like that. Why did I think that? I don't know. I thought it was going to be something like that. Turns out not to be the case. I still get the feeling like that's going to come up in some shape or form. I don't think that's going to stay secret forever, just because it's just kind of being constantly thrown in Gordon's face every day, and I'm just waiting for it to kind of like spill out. I mean, currently only a few people know the truth. Lee, I can't remember if Lee knows everything or she knows good chunks of it, but she doesn't know everything. Obviously, Sophia does, but obviously in her condition, that's not a concern for now. And in Harvey, which, it seems like him and Jim are like on the same side in this whole situation. So they're not willing to tell anybody. But luckily, Jim was able to save a lot of people. And it's like, if you were just so busy drowning your own misery, you wouldn't have been there to save all those people. It's like the reason why I took that chance, because I knew Jim Gordon would come through to save me. And I thought it was kind of interesting. He had that conversation of like, there are no heroes here. And at first I was kind of like, are you talking about in Gotham? But I think it was more so like between them, because even Gordon admitted, he's like, after everything you ever did, like I judged you. Like since the beginning, he always kind of judged Harvey for why Harvey's the way he is. But now he's kind of finally in that other situation of like kind of being swept up in the dark side of Gotham himself. I mean, he's kind of skated that line before, but this is probably for him the worst that he's ever done, because there are innocent people and innocent cops that were killed because of him mixing things up with Sophia, which brought the pig to town and everything. But it's like, either way, it's kind of interesting when you compare that, because it's like, well, that side of the episode is that, but you also have the contrast to that where you have Bruce stepping up because he feels responsible for trying, it's like, I let Jerome live, and because of that, he was in Arkham and he ended up escaping. Like, he's not talking about killing Jerome, he's talking about putting Jerome back, so he feels responsible, which I do appreciate that line from Selena being like, it's egotistical of you to think you're responsible for everything. It's not your fault for everything, every little bad thing that goes wrong in Gotham. You know, it's like, don't take so much blame on yourself, you know, to think, oh, you're so high and mighty and so important that everything that happens is your fault, you know? I guess it's kind of interesting too, because in this episode, we also kind of got a little bit of a sympathetic side for Jerome, because we kind of, you know, found out a little bit more about his family situation, his uncle, the way he was treated. I mean, we saw his uncle like literally heating up a boiling hot bowl of soup just to make Jerome. I thought he was going to dunk like Jerome's face in or something to burn him. It's like, no, literally slipped, like poured it down his throat to kind of burn him even more. I was like, wow, that's rough. It was kind of interesting because the person who came to save him was Bruce. Even Jerome was like, I really don't know how to feel about this. You kind of helped capture me, and now you're actually helping save me, which is like, yeah, it'd be the best option if he just died, but it's like, that's not Bruce's, you know, that's not Bruce's code, because, you know, I'm sure with the whole, Ra's al Ghul situation, it's making him even more hesitant to ever go down. And probably learning from that situation, he plans to probably never go down that route again. So, I did like that Selena showed up. There was that cute moment when they were in the car, and she's like, you know, do you need my help? And he's like, no, I don't. And she's like, and he kind of leans over. I was like, oh, is he about to kiss her? Because it's like, oh, the way the camera was, and it's just him reaching over, opening the door, and even she's kind of like, huh. I thought that was kind of a cute moment. I was like, because I was halfway expecting it. They haven't really been like, this is the closest they've been to being on good terms since, like, you know, him blowing up at Selena at the end of season 3. Like, they've kind of had their ups and downs, but I think for him, it's just, you know, taking a step forward. He's kind of being like, you've never owed me anything, Selena. He's like, I appreciate your help, because she's like, no one just helps for the goodness of their heart, which is obviously kind of what Bruce is doing. He just wants to help people, and he's trying to do his best at it. And so obviously he is taking a lot of responsibility, which even Selena's like, you don't have to take that on yourself. Take on the responsibility, sure, but don't take on so much that you end up getting yourself killed. So I thought it was kind of neat, because no matter what, she actually does care about Bruce, whether she might not always show it, and it might, like I said, it might have their ups and downs, but ultimately she does care about it, because she doesn't want him to get himself killed doing this, because she was going to take the shot herself. But I think it was also not only just for the sake of, like, not killing Jerome. I think it's also because he didn't want Selena to become that. It's like, the people around you are murderers. He doesn't want Selena to ever go down that route. And I'm not that familiar with Catwoman's character, but I feel like that's something she never has ever done. I mean, at least to my knowledge. Like, obviously, she's a thief and stuff like that. She rolls with bad crews, you know, obviously, like, a lot of top tier, like, Gotham villains and stuff like that, which she herself is one, but she's more labeled as an anti-hero. But it's like, she's more of a thief, so she doesn't really care too much about, like, killing people. That's kind of not in her, you know, repertoire. She has to hurt people to get what she wants, sure, but she's not all about killing. So, at least, like I said, not to my knowledge. So I think it's kind of interesting, because Bruce is trying to keep her from going down that path. He saw, like, the whole Ra's al Ghul thing, what it did to him. I'm sure he doesn't want the same thing to happen to Selena, you know? Because we know how she feels about it. But I guess in this instance, it's like, well, no, he's a bad guy. He deserves to die. It's different. Because even there's a whole situation with Ivy at that house where she killed that dude. It's like, whoa, I didn't sign up for that. I came here to steal. I didn't come to kill people, you know? So I just thought it's just kind of interesting in that regard, too. But like I said, I just like the comparison, because you have, like, Jim and Harvey being like, there's no heroes. And then at the same time, you see Bruce not striving to be a hero, but trying to do the right thing, and seeing him slowly. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but I'm very interested to see if they even tackle it this season, or, you know, with this show at all, him being that beacon, that light in the darkness, you know, for Gotham, you know, so. Because he's going after Jerome, which it's interesting, because Jerome seems he has some ulterior he was looking for an address he needed to get from his uncle, but it's like, for what purpose? I don't know. Like, what is his ultimate plan? Like, we heard before, like, what he plans to do to Gotham, turning it into the asylum. But what is he doing? I mean, what is it that he would need both Tetch's as well as Scarecrow's help? I mean, because it seems like all of Tetch's, like, plans, everything he was doing was meant to be a distraction long enough for Jerome to do what he did. Because I also thought about it too. It's like, yeah, we didn't even see hide nor hair of Scarecrow the entire episode, and it's like, oh, he was getting his duds as well as kind of getting his fear toxin. So it's going to be interesting to see what they get up to. And then on the other side of things, we had everything to do with Barbara finally learning a little bit more about her situation. It seems from the very beginning, Raish, even bringing her back to life, is like he saw something in her. And basically says that basically so many people hate her, but it's like her strength is what he'll need. And it seems I was kind of right. His plan is to make her the next Demon's Head. It's kind of what the whole plan, but it seems like her memories were buried deep. I'm curious why he did that though. Why did he keep the memories deep if he wanted her to always go down that path? Maybe it's because he feels like once she's able to obtain those memories, because even Barbara herself talked about the fact that she wanted to reach for the memories, but it was so much searing pain. But the fact that she was able to push that aside, accept it, like endure that pain and get the memories, I guess that's supposed to represent her being ready to accept it. So it turns out that the light in her hand is actually a beacon to let the League know that she's the new Demon's Head, which was like, whoa, that's an interesting twist. Because I had a feeling that was the case, but I thought it was more so like, is like Ra's al Ghul setting her up to be his next host or something like that? Like, as I was bringing it up, it's like, it's being the Ra's al Ghul in this series kind of like more like, oh, you reincarnate your spirit. Like, I could have sworn that's part of his story anyway. Like, being born, taking over someone else's body. I know it's like the Lazarus Pit kind of kept him young and everything, but I was like, I thought there was more to it. I'm curious about the Lazarus Pit too, because that hasn't come back. I mean, obviously, like Ivy had that little sample of it she got from Bruce and Lucius, but that was about it. Like, we haven't seen that actual pit itself. I wonder where that's. I guess that's somewhere in hiding. And does that mean like Barbara has control of that now too? I'm just curious. But it was an interesting conversation because it's like, I don't know, because I definitely feel like there's more to this than that. Like, I still feel like when it's all said and done, Barbara is being used as a puppet, but maybe she legit is supposed to be. I'm still thinking like this is all a ploy, because they ended up bringing up some things like when the assassins showed up, when the League of Shadows. I think I keep calling them League of Assassins. The League of Shadows. Like I said, it doesn't matter, but I'm probably just going to end up bouncing back and forth. I want to call it League of Shadows just because that's what the show refers to them as. Obviously, in Arrow, it's the League of Assassins, but nevertheless, the League, it seems like, I like their way of approaching it. It's like, oh, the lights flicker, you turn around, they're all of a sudden there. I'm like, I like that. I feel like even maybe they did that in Arrow, but I feel like it didn't happen enough. It seems like every time the League like makes their presence known, they always show up in fashion like that, and I appreciate that. But it also seems like, obviously, it's like Barbara being the head. It's like, no, that doesn't work out. It's like, because no woman has ever been the Demon's Head. It's not something that's completely forbidden. It's just never really happened before. Which I guess that kind of makes sense with everything, considering like with the Demon's Head situation of like, because none of his children have ever become the next Demon Head. I mean, he doesn't have his kids in this story, which is also another reason why I'm like, there's got to be more to this whole Ra's al Ghul situation. Because you haven't seen Talia or Nyssa kind of pop up. So that's why I'm kind of like, what's up with that? Especially at the very least around the time you would be expecting to see Talia, especially apparently like, the history her and Bruce end up apparently having in the comic books and stuff like that. Even having a kid, I forgot, like, because I know they do have like, I forgot, because there's one kid he has with Catwoman, and Damien is the, one he has with Talia. That's it, because I remember, because of Injustice, I remember that, because it was like, oh yeah, Al Ghul's never bow down to anyone or something like that. It was a line from Robin in Injustice too, and I'm like, right, so he's Talia's daughter. I mean, that's Talia's son. Nevertheless, so you would think that would be something that's come up here. So maybe it's a situation where he doesn't have a daughter yet. So like I said, I'm curious to see what they do with it. I also thought it was kind of interesting that the ladies of the League ended up killing all the other dudes. It's like they were weak. They were unwilling to like, because for Barbara, it's like, oh yeah, the reason why he chose me is because I'm strong, because I recognize that each and every one of you is weak. The fact of the matter is you're too scared of change. And she's like, yo, bow down, bitches. I'm like taking over. So they bow down and they ended up getting killed. I was like, oh, what is that? Because immediately my brain was like, oh, like, were they fake stand-ins and now the true League has showed up? I guess to a certain extent it has, because the sister, wasn't it the Sisterhood of the League? showed basically it's just a few of them, and Barbara's like, really, this is army? But it's like, no, like I don't think it's a saying. It's not saying like, oh, like all the like only the girls serve Barbara now. It's like, no, but these people right here didn't show their allegiances. They showed their weakness, and the weak need to be cut out. So that's why they were taken care of. It's like they are going to be like her main spearheads of the organizations. Like there's so many that like people around the world. I mean, that's the thing. Like I said, that's even something we never got to see even in Arrow, just like how worldwide the league is. And maybe that's something we'll kind of see, especially kind of where things are. I mean, do note, I'm like recording this before I've seen this week's episode of Arrow. As we know, that's kind of where the story's kind of picking back up with the league. So we might kind of get more into that this season. But like I said, this is being recorded before I've even watched the episode. So, but they're more so going to be like her head generals. I think a type of thing of like, they're going to be their main leaders within the league, but all across the world, the league bow down to her, which is like, wow. Barbara had power before, but this is on a whole nother level. And I'm curious to see what that means going forward with everything that's going down in Gotham. You've kind of got like two threats. You have obviously the trio from Arkham kind of doing their thing. But I'm also curious, like, is this kind of set up? Because like there's the whole like sirens of Gotham sirens type of situation. You know, like I said, with Harley, Ivy, and Selena, but you know, there being more to it. Like, I'm wondering, is this kind of like a starting gate for that? I mean, obviously, it's kind of like with Tabitha, Barbara, and Selena anyway, but it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of something I'm curious about, like, with just that, but also just like, what does she plan to do with the league going forward, like with that much power? I mean, she is gonna learn like what it's all about, because, you know, Raish didn't explain anything to her about like what she's supposed to do. Because the reason why I'm still kind of hesitant too is like, because I still don't know how Bruce fits into all this. Like, I know Bruce was set up to be the heir, but maybe it's because obviously, around that time, he already had his eyes set on Bruce, but now he felt like, you know, maybe Barbara was supposed to be his contingency plan in case things didn't work out with Bruce, or maybe she's supposed to be part of Bruce's test. I don't know. Like, I feel like there's so much we still don't know about Raish's plan with all of this. Like, like I said, it's far from over. So I can't wait to see what happens and what this means for the city. Like I said, will she kind of go full force, or will she keep them in the shadows until she is ready to fully make her move? Ultimately, we'll have to wait and see what goes down in the next episode. And now moving on to this week's episode of Arrow. So in this particular episode, pick off where the previous episode left off with this whole league situation. Because I was curious, like, where this whole thing stands, because I thought the league was disbanded. Apparently, before Malcolm was kicked out, before the whole thing back in, was at season 4 with Nyssa and Oliver basically destroying the League of Assassins. Basically, he was in the process of making a new league known as the Thanatos Guild, which is kind of interesting. And it looks like there's his second in command was a lady named Athena. And basically, it was just kind of interesting because, for one, it finally gives me the answer, like, where the hell is Nyssa? We still don't know where Talia is after I can only assume that Talia's out there somewhere too. I guess after Chase's plans all fell through, she probably just decided, like, kind of going back to her quiet life. I mean, I would assume she'd still be plotting her revenge against Oliver. Not unless she died on the island. I don't know. I feel like Nyssa would bring that up. But to be fair, who's to say, like, where that whole situation stands? But I find it so fascinating that we do have Nyssa just popping back up because she's trying to destroy this league. And it's something interesting, too, because I never really thought about, like, what Nyssa is trying to do. I mean, it's been clear that everything she's ever been doing, all she's been up to has been for the purposes of trying to make up for her father's mistake. Actually, something her and Oliver very much have in common. And this all kind of revolves around Thea, because basically she has to do the same thing. It's like, okay, Thea wants to walk away from this life, but she's kind of getting dragged back into this because of this whole Thanatos Guild situation, because Malcolm left a map, and we find out what the map is all about. It turns out that this map, in fact, is connected to 3 different Lazarus pits, that, you know, because it's like, connected ley lines, and it's like, it's like, wow, which is interesting, because it's always been believed that one Lazarus pit was kind of the only one, so it's very interesting. obviously this whole situation brought up a lot of stuff. It's like for Roy, it's like I thought we were just going to walk away from this life, but Thea's not walking away from him. You even have Oliver being like, he's being so supportive. He's like, no, if you want to go, you should go, live the life you're supposed to. But Nissa's like, if she's basically saying Thea's in the same situation as them, trying to make up for her father's mistakes, that Thea owes as much to her dad because her dad sacrificed his life for her. And that's kind of what Thea feels. It's like he sacrificed his life for hers back on Lian Yu, and so she wants to kind of like finish everything, And it also comes up with that interesting conversation that I've kind of thrown out there about the whole Oliver situation, and they kind of confirm it in this episode. It's like, no, like Oliver doesn't himself know why exactly he hasn't given John the hood, much like no matter what kind of gets thrown her way, that Theo always finds a way kind of getting drawn back into this world. And it's because in Oliver's case, it's like, because maybe wearing the hood completes you. It's kind of, Thea's thought process. And that's something I thought too. It's like the reason why you don't give up the hood, because the hood has become a part of you. You were willing to give it up because you wanted to keep that life separate for William, but William accepts you as both Oliver Queen and as a Green Arrow. He recognizes that as the other side of you. And I think that's something that Oliver's kind of having to come to terms with too in this episode. That the Green Arrow is part of him. It isn't just the hood. Yes, it's the symbol, but it is a part of who he is, And it's something Thea kind of puts in perspective of, like, by putting on that hood, he's still striving. The whole reason that he put on the hood in the first place was to correct the mistakes of his dad, and he's still doing that, trying to protect the city that his father, died, wanting to make up for his mistakes for. So, and Thea's thinking maybe that's why she's doing the same thing too. She's trying to find who she is. Like, maybe by doing this, she'll find out the best person that she'll find this best version of herself, much like Oliver does. So it's just kind of nice to see that kind of come together, and I'm curious to see what that means going forward, because even Diggle kept bringing it up this episode. Oh, what about the hood, man? What about the hood? You said you were walking away, but then he makes up excuses like, no, I can't leave you to handle this on your own with Ricardo. It's like, no. But even at the end, Theo was kind of like, don't string John alone. If you're planning on keeping hood, let him know. And I'm curious, like, will John be 100% okay with that or not? Because it's like, well, to be fair, it's like, you want it. He didn't realize he wanted it until, like, the whole, that came up in conversation before, until, like, the heroes versus aliens situation. When they were trapped in that, simulation, that's what made him realize, like, oh yeah, that was based on his true desire. So secretly, he's been wanting the hood for a while, so. But I'm curious, will he take that I would assume he would if Oliver takes the time to kind of explain that to him. But I'm curious, how will Diggle handle that? Will he try and... because once again, it's still that situation of, well, Star City 2048 is still canon, at least that we know of. So it does beg the question what happens there. His son kind of takes the mantle from Oliver. So maybe it was in John's care at one point in time in that timeline. So, but to be fair, timelines are switching all the time because of Flashpoint as well as other things, especially what the Legends are doing. But to be fair, that was kind of created in a timeline where Flashpoint happened. So at that point in time, Flashpoint already. So I don't know. I'm curious to see whether they kind of switch, because that's something that might be something further down the road. We still haven't. I keep bringing it up so often because it's yet to really swerve in that direction about the whole, like, because Felicity hasn't taken back control of what was Palmer Tech and, kind of become Smoke Industries or whatever. Like, that hasn't happened yet. So that's still pretty far in the future. To be fair, that is 30 years in the future. So that has to be kind of considered as well. But what I really loved about this too is, like, Nyssa, every time she's talking to Oliver, she's like, husband. And it's like, oh yeah, I heard that you two got married. She's like, yep. And just kind of like, yeah, don't be calling him husband and everything. And then it's like, even Oliver's like, you need to cut that out. It's kind of bothering Felicity. We're married and everything. She's like, well, yeah, I know. She's like, that's exactly why I'm doing it, because Felicity gets so bothered by it. But she does a sweet thing where she kind of annuls the marriage at the end. So I thought that was kind of neat. Because I was like, right, that was never unofficially, like, cut. And also, I'm curious what this also means too. I guess that means Malcolm is 100% dead. Like, I still get an inkling like there's more to it. Like I said, because we don't know the full scope of where everything landed at the end. We see that Black Siren ended up surviving. We know that Nyssa did, so I can only assume, like, we haven't seen, like I said, what was her? Evelyn. And who is, Artemis. We haven't seen her, nor... Wasn't Boomerang on the island? Captain Boomerang was on the island too. as well as Talia. Like, we still don't know where they are, so that might be something that's kind of like, until they pop back in the story, you won't know. Like Nissa, but it seems like the entire time she's been off doing this. So I guess they haven't been too focused on it because it's like her story is kind of handling its own thing, which is kind of grouping both Roy as well as Thea into it, because Roy's not going to go anywhere without, Thea, because, it's like, no matter what, he plans on kind of staying by her side. So it's kind of interesting to see that both the characters, at least for the time being, Roy making his exit again, but we also have Thea kind of leaving as well, kind of going on this journey. Like right now, it seems like that's kind of a setup story all on its own. I'm sure it'll kind of come back around in some shape or form. But for now, it just seemed like that's kind of that's Thea's story that she's got to go handle. So I'm curious to see how that all plays out in in combination with Arrow's story, so. I also even appreciate that moment where Nissa was like, no, okay, oh, you need to be alone to focus. Don't worry, I'll stay here to make sure no one bothers you so you can stay focused and you have Felicity. Yay! Also funny finding out from Nissa, it's like, yeah, she never actually used a computer until she turned 25. I'm like, wow. I mean, to be fair, the league is all kind of, stuck in a old age just with how they handle things. It turns out even the way Malcolm handled things, I mean, I guess that's kind of something too. I kind of brought this up because I'm talking about Gotham at the same time, and it's so interesting because obviously, like, at the time I was recording that, I hadn't seen this week's episode of Arrow, and it's kind of interesting because they're doing kind of a similar thing with the League, which is kind of an interesting thing too. It's like basically how the League is like needs to change. It kind of comes up in this episode too, because it's like Malcolm, like the way he handled things is like that map was kind of very scientific, because it's like there's actually a special bacteria on it that didn't respond unless Thea's blood. I would assume Malcolm's blood would work too, but in particular the Merlin bloodline. It makes you wonder, like, if Tommy was still alive, would he be able to activate too? I'd assume so, but. It also seems like they weren't necessarily aiming for Thea to take control. If she was ready, sure, they would have accepted her as a leader. But like in Athena's case, it's like, no, this is my role to handle. Because it was always meant to pass on to Thea, which kind of begs the question, what would she do with like, obviously she wants to destroy the League. She's fine with that because it's like the League, this is just, I mean, to be fair, this is also in that situation where this was Malcolm who created this when he was in that mindset. This isn't the Malcolm from season 5. This is the Malcolm from season 4. Who was still kind of, getting what he always wanted. Plus, this is also like, around the same time he kind of got his power cut. Because it's kind of interesting, because at the beginning they kind of show like the past. We could, with the timeline, it's like 4 years ago. So basically it was between season 2 and season 3. It was basically when Thea was kind of done with everything and she kind of left with Malcolm. So, because at first I was like, when in the point in timeline does it take place? And it's like, right, it has to be there. So, because that's when she ended up leaving Stars. Was it Star City yet? I think it was still Starling City at that time. It's like she ended up leaving it at the end of season 2. So I guess because it's kind of interesting, because obviously the League only came here for that particular reason. So now they're probably going to be hunting Nissa and Thea and Roy. So I guess we don't have to worry about the League coming back. Well, Thanatos skill coming back to Star City anytime soon. Kind of about to say that's going to be interesting having that go down, because I actually thought that was going to have the case Dinah was working on. I thought like that was going to come back in some shape or form and mix into this, but it's like no, like Dinah's whole story, her and Curtis's story is kind of like its own thing, while Team Arrow is handling their own thing too. So. It seems like basically they're trying to figure out more of the corruption with things. The same thing for Lance, because it's like, okay, there's definitely got to be a lot more people higher up in this whole situation. Obviously, Dinah has her suspicions of Captain Hill, and it turns out to be, we know her suspicions are right, but they basically find out at the end of the episode. Which it also seems like Diaz is also pushing Vertigo now, which is kind of interesting. Like that drug's always come and go. Like hasn't it been a while since that? Maybe I think it has popped up even more recently. Like it's not like, I feel like something you hear every once in a while. It's not something that's constantly consistent. But I guess I'm curious, for what purpose is he pushing Vertigo? I guess just another market for him to kind of monopolize on, or maybe there's a bigger plan here other than that. And then you also have that officer that Curtis is very interested in, Nick, and it's like, oh yeah, and immediately my brain goes, there's something not right about this. I'm like, I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. Like, he just happens to be there around the time that you and Dinah are trying to break in and stuff. Like, obviously, he didn't find out anything, but I'm like, I don't know. Like, there wasn't really anyone else around, but he happens to be around. It's like, maybe it's just lucky, you know, it's like, oh, serendipity, but I'm like, no, there's got to be more to it. Now I'm starting to wonder, let's not forget, Ricardo knows their identities. So who's to say like they don't use someone to kind of get close to Curtis for the purposes of keeping them even further in check. He really doesn't look too much at them as a threat, but they could still be an annoyance. And so he'd rather probably keep tabs on their operation and stuff like that. So why not by having someone get close to him? Just like, you know, Vincent got close to Dinah, eventually coming clean about being a double agent and everything. Sure, but you know, who's to say the same thing isn't going to happen for Curtis? I mean, there's also the negative side of things you kind of have to look at too, when it's kind of like, oh yeah, like let's not forget why Curtis's marriage fell apart because of the whole him being a vigilante thing. It's like, well, if you hook up with this dude Nick, and it's like he's a cop, so it's going to leave him a little conflicted. Which is also interesting because the fact is you have Dinah being like a cop and a vigilante. Well, you have Barry literally doing the same thing. But once again, the whole conversation of, well, Barry's a hero. Oh, to be fair, I forgot. Barry kind of got fired, so he still hasn't been like brought back on as a forensic scientist with the Central PD stuff. It's like, right, that's interesting. I also found it funny too that when she was talking about it, Dinah referenced Central City when it came to Vertigo. It's like, I guess it started in Central City, but like I know it's been like a heavy thing and obviously Star City, but it's like, did it start in Central City, or is that kind of referencing the fact that it might swing back around in Central City? I don't know what that's all about. That's just kind of interesting to me that I mean, to be fair, I guess that's her reference for it. Like she did work out of Central City, so she probably doesn't know a lot about what they've handled in Star City, so maybe that's kind of an element to it as well. Like I said, I mean, those are just kind of my thoughts about where everything is heading. Like, ultimately, we'll kind of have to wait and see where all of this kind of takes us, like I said. Because it's just kind of interesting. This episode was kind of like, obviously, a little bit development for Oliver, but I feel like it was also kind of setting up, like, the whole Nyssa, Roy, and Thea storyline more so than anything. Like, it's probably something we'll know that they're all doing, but we probably won't. Because I think that's such a heavy thing, too. It's like 3 Lazarus pits. That's definitely going to turn into something a lot bigger. It might even be something that's like, well, it's introduced this season, but we probably won't see, like, the big payoff for that storyline until next season. I kind of, like I said, I still got the inkling that Malcolm's still alive, but maybe it is that he is outright dead. Because I feel like because it might be a situation of he might wait till like when it's all said and done, like Thea kind of proves herself, and it's like, oh, lo and behold, I'm still alive and everything. I mean, who knows? Maybe Thanatos might decide to try and track down Malcolm's remains and get him into the Lazarus pit. Might see something like that, but ultimately we'd have to wait and see. And also see where everything kind of goes down with this whole corruption thing. Is like, well, you know who some of the players are. Still don't know everyone, but obviously you know Captain Hill's at the top currently. So it does beg the question, like, who else is involved? And like, how do you go about taking down a corrupt group like that, you know? So because ultimately we have to wait and see. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.